I'd like to welcome Mike Trizano to the Jersey Boys Podcast. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How's everything?
Everything's good. I got to pay the bills, so let me just read out a sponsor real quick. BetMMA.tips, one-stop shop for betting on MMA. Follow other users. You can make your picks, track your picks. Hopefully one day we'll be able to pick you in a big-time UFC show.
I hope so.
So this is the Jersey Boys Podcast. Obviously, you're from New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. So tell us about growing up in Jersey and getting involved in mixed martial arts. We all know that you started at Tiger Showman's. Was it karate first? Was it MMA? Was it wrestling? Where'd you go?
Well, I started with straight just kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. That's what we teach at Tiger Showman's, and I took my first class. The first class was a beginner kickboxing class, and I started off. I thought it was tough, and I was dead tired within like 30 seconds of the first round. Super out of shape, and I was hooked ever since.
Now, did you start before high school, during high school? What kind of age group did you get into this?
Yeah, I started when I was 17, so I was in high school. So it's been about 10 years now since.
Okay. What did you play any of the sports in high school? Did you wrestle in high school, football, anything to just get pounded around a little bit, or did you just kind of go right into the martial arts?
Yeah, I mean, I was an athlete my entire life. I played baseball, lacrosse, football, you name it, I've done it. But I was super into football. I played that for about 10 years through high school too. And I didn't play my senior year because I got super into training, and I kind of just I was done with that. I wasn't like a star football player or anything. I just enjoyed the sport, playing with friends and stuff. You know, it wasn't like I was gonna get a scholarship to play in college. So I was just done with that, and I got hooked with training. So that's where I ended up going.
And when you said scholarship to play for college, you said, I've heard in other interviews that school wasn't really for you. You really just fell in love with the martial arts. Did it help you at that point to basically realize I can make money, I can make a profession out of this? Or were you still looking for other things to do with your life?
Honestly, all I wanted to do was train, and to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about the money too much. My parents were, and they were giving me a hard time about it. They're like, oh, this isn't going to take you anywhere, this and that. At the time, they were very against it. They loved that I was doing something and enjoying it, but they didn't want me to be going to a dead end, and they support me my whole life. They're the best parents I could ask for. But, I just enjoyed training. I was working 2 jobs. I was working at a warehouse, and I was working at a late night delivery place to kind of just make some quick bucks. And eventually my parents were like, all right, stop going to school, because my mind wasn't in it. It wasn't for me. I could always go back to it, honestly, but I started really focusing on fighting, and they were fully behind me 100%, especially after they saw me for my first few fights. Kickboxing, seeing how well I was doing and how serious I was about it. They were like, all right, he's serious about it. He's being successful with it. There's ways to make money. And so I eventually started teaching at Tiger Showman's too, making money doing that. And soon, hopefully, I could start making more money. But, that's not my main thing. I really just enjoy the sport itself, and it's my passion. And I'll continue to do it regardless if I'm making nothing.
You know what? And following your passion, like you said, is very important. How did you get into mixed martial arts in New Jersey? I'm actually covering the Rock 63 event on Friday of this week. So you have a history of with the Ring of Combat. You have a history with Maverick, Dead Serious, some other local shows. How did you get into all these shows? Did your manager get you in? Was it a passion of yours? Did you want to stay local? So just kind of bring us through that journey.
Yeah, I mean, my first fight was a boxing fight, actually, in Hoboken. It was like a small little boxing fight. It was at the LA Boxing at the time, which is now UFC gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I fought there for the first time, and I did another fight there, boxing fight, and then I had a third boxing fight before I started kickboxing at the W Hotel. Then I started doing a bunch of kickboxing shows. I was the champ at Friday Night Fights in the city. At 155 pounds as an amateur. I kept kickboxing. I did combat at the Capitale as well a bunch of times. I held the belt there as well. And then, my coaches were really the ones that were putting me in different organizations. They knew which ones were like the better ones to go to, were the bigger ones. Like, I had a bunch of guys on my fight team that had been through it already, so they kind of knew the path that I should take, and they just guided me along the way. I pretty much just told them, like, just give me a date and I'll be there. I just wanted to fight and get as much experience as I possibly could because I wanted to go pro and take it further. So the more experience, the better.
It's great. A lot of your first fights were actually in my backyard. I'm right up in Union City, so Hoboken's right down the hill. So I should have went down to see some of those older fights.
Yeah.
What's your schedule like now? Training, working? I know you're doing some teaching, right, at Tiger Showman's also?
Yeah, that's actually what I just finished up doing. I teaching classes at Tiger Showman's in Paramus, actually. And, I mean, my schedule is this: Monday through Friday, 3 hours of training in the morning with the fight team in Elmwood Park, which is our Tiger Showman's headquarters. And then I have like an hour or two break, and then I go to the school in Paramus, and I teach kids and adults, people that just want to learn the sport or just get in shape, or parents want them to build their confidence, not get bullied. So that's like the biggest thing. So I love helping them. We actually we have 2 in-house tournaments in Tiger Showman's. It's called the Challenge of Champions. We do it twice a year, and we actually, this past Sunday, I was reffing at the tournament, and it's cool to see like my students that I put in there, compete and be successful, and it really helps them progress in the sport, and also builds their confidence, makes them feel like, oh wow, this stuff actually works. Like I can really protect myself, and it's cool to see that and see how far people are going from all the teaching I'm giving them.
And it was actually great this weekend. I'm watching the UFC event, and your commercial came on. You're doing some Tiger Showman commercials at this point.
Yeah, no, they absolutely wanted to get some commercials out there, especially, me being on the show right now and that airing. So they wanted to get that out there at the same time to kind of show, like, one side of me is fighting, I get in there and I'm mean and stuff like that, but they also wanted to show the other side where, like, I'm passionate about teaching other people, and, like, I'm actually, like, a down-to-earth person, so they wanted to hit, both aspects of my life, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. I want to try to stay away from questions that you've already answered, but, just take a little bit into this. Your last fight in Bellator, I believe it was at 145. On the Tough Show, you're fighting at 155. Any reason why you went up to 155? I know you've jumped back and forth. And then where do you see your future? At 145, 155?
Well, I did 155 for the show because I knew I had got teammates that had done the show in the past, and I didn't want to have to worry about my weight. I absolutely could have done the show at 145, but it would have been a lot more stressful for me. I would have been a lot more miserable keeping my weight a little bit lower than normal. Making 145 is easy. I approach it differently, and just for like this type of competition and having to have a quick turnaround with fights and stuff like that, I didn't want to have to stress about it. I just wanted to be able to go in there and just fight and worry only about that. And I didn't want to kill myself either. Like, there were some guys that had to cut a lot of weight, and it had a negative impact on them. So I wanted to be fresh. So 155 is like a breeze. I don't have to think about it, and I'm never stressed with my weight cut ever. So that's why I did it on the show. But my future lies at 145 or 155. I'm noticing my body changing. I'm starting to put more muscle on as I get older. I'm still young. I'm 26, so my body's still changing, and if I end up getting bigger, and I'll stay at 55. If I can still make 145 without dying, I'll do that too. It really doesn't matter to me. I prefer to not have to cut any weight, to be honest, and I know a lot of other fighters are taking that road too, because it negatively affects you. You can be really good, but if you cut too much weight, it hurts your performance.
Yeah, Dana White actually came out, I believe it was this morning, in an interview and said something about moving the time of weigh-ins. So there's been a lot of debate on Twitter and on different shows today. So, yeah, you're right on the money with that. Take us through. You just talked about being stressed and not being stressed on the show. Take us through the tough tryouts. I watched a couple videos about the actual tryouts. It looked kind of stressful. There were, I don't even know how many fighters. I'm going to guess there had to be 60 or 70 fighters in that room. and they only picked 16, right? So were there more than that?
Yeah.
How was that process?
Well, it was cool. I mean, I got there and tryouts were like 8 in the morning. There were thousands of people there trying out because
Oh,
they
there were
did
that many
three weight
people.
classes at the time. It was 145, 155, and 170. Then they ended up cutting 170 completely.
Okay.
But at first they took us through grappling. We had to just do some quick 90-second matches, and it was only one really. And Sean Shelby was there just watching us grapple. After everybody went through and grappled, then they called out names, and they didn't call your name, you had to go. That was it. You didn't make it to the next round. And the next round was just striking on some pads for 2 minutes. They watched us do that, and they called names again. They're like, all right, if we didn't call your name, see you later. And then after that, it was an interview. They wanted to see how we would talk in front of a camera. And after that, everyone finished the interview. They announced a bunch of names, and then I was one of them that was called. Everyone else had to go, and they kept us the rest of the week, just having us do medicals and things like that. And then at the end of the week, they were pretty much like, all right, you're going home. We'll let you know if you're going to be on or not. There was about 40 guys in each weight class, 145 and 155, that had stayed the rest of the week. And then they had narrowed it down to just 16 people total. So a lot of people got cut after that week. But, I mean, as soon as I left, I just went right into training camp and just prepared like I had made it. If I did, great. If I didn't, oh well, I'll just get a fight sometime, earlier in the year. So it didn't matter to me. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And obviously it paid off that I was able to make the show. So I just went with it.
And what you just mentioned, Aspen Ladd actually said in an MMA Junkie interview, it's all about marketability and how you sell yourself. Direct quote. Is that the mindset you had at that time? Is that the mindset you have now? This is a business. You got to sell yourself, obviously.
Yeah.
So how do you think about that, the marketability, and how you really need to promote yourself?
Honestly, I'm just being me. I'm not like Delani trying to be all flashy with the chains and all that stuff. That's not me. I just want to be myself. I want to go out there, have fun, enjoy the process, and and enjoy the competition and testing myself. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I think me wearing the cowboy hat and stuff like that gives me a little marketability, and I could talk to anybody, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, again, I'm just being me. That's it.
What about Stipe? He's in your corner. You got a little, a new flair to your game now with him. I saw you hitting pads in I guess when you were on the show, when you were doing a little
Yeah.
sparring, hitting pads with him. What'd you pick up from him, from his experiences? He's been in the big fights. He's been a champion. I believe he's defended 3 or 4 times at this point. He's got DC coming up. So what'd you learn from him?
Man, I learned a lot of different things on the show. It was cool to get different perspectives from other people. Because sometimes when we stay in one gym, we're kind of like closed in, and you tend to not have an open mind. So when I went to the show, I was just like a sponge, man. Anything somebody told me, whether it was good or bad, I took it in and tried to just add it to my game. And Stipe showed me a lot of cool stuff, just different types of techniques. And what the biggest thing I really got out of it was how to really focus on recovery just as much as the actual training process, because as we get older, and we start to get banged up, heal slower, and it's important to really focus on your recovery so you're as healthy as possible come fight day. So I think learning different recovery methods and how to keep myself healthy was one of the biggest things I got out of it.
Especially your age, one of the biggest thing is making improvements. What improvements did you try to make on the show, or are you trying to make now? And how did you put your whole game together? Are you trying to, you go out there, obviously you started with kickboxing, you mentioned that earlier, the clinch work, the wrestling, in your fight, the first fight on Tough, you were able to take them down and ground them out even after getting knocked down. So how did you put your whole game together, and what improvements are you trying to make now?
You know what? The one thing I really wanted to do is be able to blend the takedowns in with the striking, because I I got a good striking game, I got a good ground game, but I always had trouble like putting it all together. Really blending the takedowns in with my strikes so that people don't see it coming. And I think I've been really working on that and improving that. And I feel like I'm a complete martial artist now. And no matter where the fight goes, I'm ready for it. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I've seen that in a lot of the fights that I've watched in the past, and then the fights on Tough. One last question, and then I'll let you go, Mike. What question, if you were an MMA journalist, I'm just kind of getting into it myself. If you were an MMA journalist, what question would you ask yourself?
Where do you see yourself in the sport in 5 years?
So, Mike, where do you see yourself in the sport in 5 years?
I see myself holding up gold.
The lone wolf out there by yourself.
Yep.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on. Why don't you take this time to shout out anybody, sponsors, media outlets? You've already talked about your family.
Yeah, no, I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend. She's the behind the scenes person who really makes everything run smooth. Without her, honestly, I'd be super stressed. But it's because of her that I can only think. I only have to think about the fight itself. I want to thank my family for always supporting me, always being behind me 100%, coming to every single fight. I want to thank my team, Tiger Showmans, for helping me prepare. We're the best team in the world, and we're going to be taking over real soon. And I want to thank ProVeer PT for keeping me healthy. And, yeah, that's it.
Mike, thanks for coming on, and good luck in your next Tough fight.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.